We're really glad to have you join us today, and I think that at the beginning of this session, Patricia called out the fact that we were able to announce last week. You announced last week that you'd made both an equity investment into carbon capture, and also that we're working to establish a business relationship to think about how we place carbon removal credits over the next few years and hopefully the next few decades. So maybe before we dive into those details a little more, I'm just really interested to understand what you do day to day.
What does my title mean exactly? Yeah. Well, while the rest of Amazon is focused on driving our footprint down toward our, we have a 2040 net zero commitment under the climate pledge. My team and I have been tasked with figuring out Amazon's long-term strategy for driving climate mitigation outside of our value chain at a scale that's sufficient to help us balance out our residual emissions by 2040. So I spend some of my time working with the government partners in the LEAF Coalition. We've mobilized more than $1 billion in finance for protecting tropical forests. Emissions in Brazil are way down this year so far. I spend some of my time thinking about and working very hard to build a pipeline of investable nature-based carbon removal projects, agroforestry projects and smallholder agriculture across the tropics. And I spend a good bit of my time scouting novel carbon removal technologies, and that's how we found you.
Awesome. So, I would say, and I don't think it's a surprise to anybody to say that Amazon is a really big, immense, complex organization, and I think to think about some of your 2040 goals, maybe to start with, what are the biggest, hardest things to be tackling for a company that doesn't necessarily emit all throughout your current operations. You have an extended supply chain, you have an extended customer base.
Let me say a few words about what we're doing on decarbonization, which is our first and foremost priority and always will be. And then, because my role is neutralization, talk a little bit about big challenges in that lane. Amazon is investing very aggressively in decarbonization. We are, I think, 3 years running the world's largest corporate buyer of renewable energy. We know how to do that very well now. Many gigatons of renewable energy online to power our operations. We have a $2 billion venture capital fund specifically for climate technologies, and that's the fund that's made this investment among, I think, 20 plus others as well. A whole range of technologies, low carbon cement and efficient HVAC units, Rivian, among others. We are electrifying our delivery fleet, our last mile delivery fleet. We're investing in green hydrogen and electrification in middle mile. We're slashing packaging. We're inventing new packaging material. We're investing in micromobility. The list goes on. I kind of have to refresh myself. That's actually the space I spend my time in. But still, even still, we're a very large company. We're a fast-growing company. People think of us as a technology company, and we are, but we have an airline. We have freight. We build a lot of buildings every year with concrete and steel. We have many hard-to-abate sources of emissions in our footprint, which is why we're investing so aggressively in new technologies in those spaces for decarbonization. But if you look at IPCC pathways, and Amazon is in a sense a microcosm of the global economy, it's obvious that we're going to need nature, and we're going to need technological carbon removal as well. And so that's my domain at Amazon. And my biggest challenge, as a business, the carbon market is supposed to be the mechanism, the efficient mechanism that we use to access those solutions. It is in disrepair. I try not to get too upset about it. It really wasn't built to be an engine to achieve the Paris targets, and now we're asking that of it. And so it's transforming, and we're helping it to transform. There are quality issues that are quite pervasive. The market is also really small. People talk a lot about its growth year to year and where it will be in 25, 15x by 2030. It's really small. It's very small. It's just not a solution for a big company like Amazon. And so my work is very much about back to the whiteboard, back to first principles. How do we mobilize global climate action at massive scale very, very quickly and across all of the areas that needs to happen? It's not otherwise going to happen without this kind of corporate intervention. I have a great job. I really enjoy that. Those are big, hairy problems, and it leads me to companies like carbon capture, and we're psyched about our work there.
Thanks. Yeah, and you're probably not going to be out of job for quite a while. So I guess another side of that, maybe a different way to ask the question is, like, how much of what Amazon is doing also is being customer driven? Is there really a sense that, you know, there is a growing demand for you to be offering a different approach that's going to be decarbonized, or is this really, again, just you being, or the company having the understanding that there's this existential threat coming, you better start now?
Well, the climate pledge is our North Star. I think I won't speculate on the confluence of factors that led the company to make that commitment. I'm very excited that it did. I wouldn't be here if they hadn't, frankly. You know, customers, I think, do expect companies to lead, and we're going to have to do that. Our employees expect that. I expect that of my company. Our investors expect that. You know, then we think about how to do that. We don't do things for show at Amazon. We want to do real things. And so, you know, buying carbon credits off the shelf, that we look under the hood and come to find, actually, this is grossly overestimated in terms of its impact, the actual impact behind that. It's just not something that we're going to spend our money on. So we expect of ourselves that we're going to do real things. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of uncertainty in this space. How will these technologies evolve? What will our residual footprint be? How will our business grow and evolve and change over time? What will the expectations of companies like Amazon be in the future? What will regulation look like? What's the composition of that across all of the geographies where we have operations, which is most of them? And so in the face of that uncertainty, our North Star is science. We just go back to the science. We look at the IPCC pathways and we say, these are the things that need to be done. So we better be active in these spaces. We've got to do our part. How the obligations for kind of realizing that trickles down to companies like Amazon is to be seen, to be determined. But in any case, we have a role to play and we know that. And so I mean, that's the impetus for our work. Sure.
The other thing I'd like to say, and this is again just sort of thinking about, you know, we're a company of 60 people. Like we're starting out, but you know, we've had, I would say, a glimpse of the types of things that Amazon can do. Maybe if you just have, you know, we talked about a few of them over lunch today, but just some of the things that, you know, we might be able to lean on, and the things that Amazon's actually willing to do to support, like for example, the goal of building capacity and reducing cost.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll say a few things about that. So, you know, we've made a financial investment. But then we need to make sure that this technology succeeds, and in fact, this entire technology category. There's a lot of things that Amazon can do and does well. When we first talk about the demand side, actually, and then we talk about kind of scaling the technology. One of the we've spoken with a number of direct air capture companies and other technology companies in the carbon removal space. A lot of technological problems, a lot of financing issues, but also demand. You have to have demand, right? You've got to build new technology. You've got to get that financing locked in. You got to de-risk the market risk, which means you've got to have committed offtake agreements in place. These credits are very expensive today, and they will be for a while. We need to figure out, he's going to do a great job on cost reduction, but you know, it's expensive. We need to figure out how companies can use credits like this in a way that has appreciable business value. And I honestly don't have the answer to that in full. I have a lot of great ideas. Amazon, I believe, is very well positioned to explore that and to do the inventing and the innovating, in part because, not only because we're innovators, but because we have a very extensive value chain. It can't just be Amazon buying these credits, but we have thousands of very large suppliers that have their own footprints, and only a portion of that is in our scope 3. We have millions of third-party sellers that sell through our marketplace. We have enterprise customers, AWS, and so on. And so there's a journey ahead, but one of the things I'm excited about with this partnership is we will have some of this volume that we can use to experiment with those use cases, with those opportunities. Then we can learn how to have a sustainable sort of demand for this technology category in particular. And in addition, that's the demand side. As I mentioned, we're the world's largest buyer of renewable energy in the corporate world. We do that very well. We can help with that. We can help with software optimization. We can help on the policy front. We have muscle in these areas. There's a lot that we can do technically. We have a robotics team. We can help with logistics, supply chain scaling. So we're on the front end of learning, having our teams activated and learning exactly how we can help a company like Carbon Capture Inc. We're really excited about what we can do. So not just buying carbon credits off the shelf, but really being part and parcel of the invention and scaling of these technologies. So let me first say, we're interested in catalyzing this industry, and I think it's going to take more than one player. And so, wanting to provide early commercial support and early financial support as an investor for promising companies that are coming out of the gate. Carbon capture is very compelling to me. Their business model is very compelling to me. Part of what's compelling about carbon capture in particular is I like that you call it the low temperature category. I think that's instead of solid sort, that's what I'll use now. The notion, there's some other companies that have a sorbent they've invented, and their IP is around the monolith that they have. I'm certain that the monolith that gets down the cost curve that we saw here hasn't been invented yet. And so rather than bet on a particular set of IP today, this business model allows those new inventions to be plugged in as they're invented over time. That is the kernel of it for me. There's more to it than that, of course. That's particularly compelling to me.